Hey, so I'm Meredith Hawley. I'm a lawyer and life coach, and I help women shift power dynamics so that they can stop and prevent toxic work environments. And today I want to talk about hegemony. I'm not even sure I'm saying that word right because it's one of those words that I always read and don't say, but I really love it, so I should probably figure out how to say it right. You can tell me if I'm saying it wrong. So hegemony is one of my favorite cultural health concepts. It's like a cultural political concept. And I'm gonna read. I learned about it in the first feminist theory class that I accidentally took. It was called Melodrama. It was a film class, and at that point, I believed that uh, feminism was trying to destroy men, and so it was one of my first exposures to the idea that feminism is meant to build both genders up and to support both genders, not to like undermine one gender over and impose women over men or men over women, but just to lift both genders up. Anyway, okay, so that's how I learned about hegemony. And I want to read you one definition of it that's kind of sounds complicated, that I actually got from Wikipedia, but it is consistent with my understanding of hegemony, and it's a little more detailed than what I found in any of the dictionary definitions. Okay, so hegemony is the domination of a culturally diverse society by the ruling class who manipulate the culture of that society, the beliefs, explanations, perceptions, values, and mores, so that their imposed ruling class worldview becomes the accepted cultural norm. The universally valid dominant ideology which justifies the social, political, and economic status quo as natural and inevitable, perpetual and beneficial for everyone, rather than artificial social constructs that benefit the ruling class. So the idea of hegemony, if I'm gonna describe it in my own words, is that there's a ruling class that benefits from oppression, but the oppression has seeped so much into cultural beliefs that it's actually the oppressed people who enforce the oppression, not the oppressors. They don't even have to work anymore because those who are oppressed are enforcing the oppression against each other. So one classic example of this is when we talk about slavery in the United States, when you would have slaves who were assigned to duties in the house, imposing rules against other slaves who were assigned to duties in the field. And so it was one like slightly higher up class of oppression that was enforcing the oppression against their own people, against the people who were more like them, were experiencing things more like them. So I think that this is just like this crucial concept. If we're really gonna change, if we're really gonna change our own institutionalized, systemic racism, sexism, discrimination, oppression based on random characteristics, I think that hegemony is the key to it. And if I'm saying it right, it's a fun word to say. So a lot of people who don't study oppression issues think of racism, for example, as going and punching somebody of a different race in the face. Like, I'm not racist because I didn't punch a Black person today. And that is not typically how racism manifests, or like with gender discrimination. I work with women, so I'm not sexist. And it's a very literal, externalized idea of what discrimination looks like, of what oppression looks like. Generally, I mean, we do see those examples, and unfortunately they still exist, but the much more insidious version of what those oppressions look like is is what we have accepted into culture through our beliefs and what we impose against each other. So the example that keeps standing out to me and why I want to talk about this today is something that I see women do with other women quite frequently now, and I think it's well intended, and I think it's kindly intended, and I think it is meant with love and meant to build other people up, but I think the effect does not. And that is when women tell other women not to apologize. And so I see this a lot with even moms to their daughters, or supervising women in a business situation to younger women who are coming up in subordinate roles. And I see them say, don't apologize so much. You don't need to apologize. Don't apologize. And generally the way that the younger or the way the apologizing woman is going to take it is, I'm going to put this on the list of other things I do wrong. And so my question is, why don't we tell men, instead of telling women don't apologize, why don't we tell men you should apologize more? Why is the assumption that women apologize too much instead of the assumption that men don't apologize enough? I think both assumptions exist in culture. Both are obviously available. But I just question, if you're telling another woman how to behave, if you have the assumption that another woman should be more assertive, often that assumption is based in the idea that the way men behave is better, instead of the assumption that men in culture are more successful because we have a hegemonic society that benefits them. So there are many instances of women being successful by modeling their behavior after men. And I'm not criticizing them for that. That totally makes sense to me. But if we're going to change the underlying assumptions that create the oppression, part of that has to be accepting traditionally feminine ways of interacting, like apologizing, like collaborating, like taking responsibility for things that maybe aren't our responsibility. And sometimes we want to deliberately do those things. Sometimes they are effective in creating consensus, and they're not bad just because they're not masculine. So, you might disagree with that, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts about it. And my main point about this is, if you are looking at the way women are behaving, do you want to criticize it as it applies to you? Or do you want to be on your own side? Do you want to change the system and question the system that creates ongoing oppression? Or do you want to align with the system? Because sometimes we want to do both, but if we're doing it unconsciously, we're buying into that hegemonic idea, the hegemonic morals that support the status quo as it is now. So if we really want to change, I think we have to change something deeper, not just change the apologizing. We have to change our assumption that we shouldn't apologize, our assumption that women should act like men, our assumption that men act better and that's why they're more successful. They're not more, like, there have been studies, there's a Harvard research study that definitively shows that men and women typically in the workplace act the same, and men get more rewards than women get. So, like, they've done specific behavioral research studies on these issues, and it's not really questioned and up for grabs so much anymore as, like, nobody knows why this happened. It's because of underlying bias in our beliefs and in what we've been taught to think, not because women aren't acting in an assertive way or in the way that successful people act. Women are doing that, and they're not getting the benefits of it. So I think overall point, we need to change our thinking in order to end oppression. We can't just change our behavior. We can't just stop apologizing and then get more success. We have to really look at what our assumptions are and what we think women should do, what we think men should do, and what do we believe about that. So I just wanted to contribute my comments to the conversation. And if you agree, disagree, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you.